Watch was never a show about heroes to us. It was a show about ordinary people who do extraordinary things.
It's really an exploration of that whole idea of first respondership.
These people are walking into people's worst nightmares every day.
We're on the streets of New York filming. And I mean, huge fires and huge car chases, and it was born. Third Watch was born. It's pretty incredible.
The first season, the idea was that you have these three entities, the police, the firemen, and the paramedics, that often collide on one scene.
The idea came from Ed Bernero and I were both working on a show called Trinity that we were doing for NBC, and he had been a Chicago cop. And so in between things we were talking about, he would tell me stories.
John had this whole backlog of research from doing ER that was about paramedics and things that happened outside the ER that they could never use on the show. So he asked me if I wanted to sort of create a cop show, and he would create a paramedic show. And once we started working on the script, we were sort of like, well, we don't have any firemen, so that's the kind of triad of people that work on the streets.
We got a serial rapist working in Macy Gardens. Struck 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Witnesses describe him as a black male, early 20s.
They couldn't be any more vague?
How about you all get out of here and do some work?
Chicago police terminology, they had first watch, second watch, third watch. The third watch is the 4 to 11 shift, or the 5 to midnight, 4 to midnight shift.
Third watch doesn't exist in New York. We thought that was a really cool title for the show, but it didn't actually exist. Although over the run of the series, they started using that terminology.
Station 5 Live. Where's that? King and Arthur.
The streets King and Arthur don't exist in New York. Well, they do, but they don't cross. And I was talking to John about my belief that these emergency workers are the last sort of knights of the round table that are left, that go out and do battle with demons for us. So we wanted to put the police station on the corner of King and Arthur and call it Camelot.
This is 5-5 Charlie. Officer needs assistance. Shots fired.
Well, the 5-5 or the double nickel, you will see in a number of television and movies, you'll see 5-5. That's because you don't use double numbers for call signs. So there actually isn't a 5-5 in New York City.
This isn't a family.
Sir.
Oh, the cops. I don't believe this. The cops now.
I'm trying to put myself in your position here.
You can't put yourself in my position.
The perspective of Third Watch always stayed with the people, and how does this trauma affect the human being?
It was hard to execute on an episodic basis because everybody had to kind of have equal time to a certain degree.
So it was how to craft stories that interwove the 3 separate parts of the show so that they were interrelated to each other in some way, and that something that was happening for one would affect people in the other. But what the show ended up becoming as we started to work on it was about work families, blue-collar, working-class people trying to make it.
We always wanted to do more of a character show about the people that work on the street, not so much about the crimes or the incidents that happen, but about the people who do those jobs.
Oh, man. Ugh.
Oh.
Want some?
Oh, no. No. Hey. How about a little bit of this? Want some of that?
The casting was an interesting process because there were about half of the cast that I knew well and had worked with before, and half the cast I had never met or had any experience with.
On the board, when we first started talking about the show, the first thing that went up there were Bobby and Kim.
Played by Bobby Cannavale and Kim Raver, so they just kept their first 2 names, and their characters became Bobby and Kim.
Because that's all we knew them as going into it. It was John's idea to make this sort of triangle between Kim and Bobby and Eddie, and it's certainly served us well the first few years.
One concert, what's the harm?
No, you're going to end up sleeping with him.
No, I'm not.
I'm going to end up listening to you whine about what a jerk he is for the next week.
Not gonna happen.
Right. The sun ain't going to shine.
It won't.
Sure.
Fine.
Okay.
Whatever.
Eddie was somebody that we had taken to the network to possibly be Bosco. And while we were at the network, it was sort of I was walking with John about 15 or 20 feet behind Eddie, and every office that we passed, girls would step out and go, "Who was that?" You know, and we were like, "Well, we got to get this guy on the show."
Hi. Oh, looks like the party's already started.
I didn't know Jason, and he was completely different than what I thought the character was going to be.
When I opened the script to Third Watch, it's the first line is Maurice Boscarelli, 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle, frustration, and attitude. And I was like, that's me.
Sometimes physical descriptions are things I, as a casting director, I take as a quality, not as a dictum.
Once I got cast, I think I was in New York 2 weeks later, and Ed Bernero, being an ex-police officer from Chicago, we started training with him, and I was doing ride-alongs anytime I wasn't rehearsing.
Got something?
Maybe. I knew it. It's just a maybe. Let's go. Look, Geronimo, me and the kid will take a look, and if we find something, we'll call for you. Is that right?
The biggest problem we had in getting the pilot episode off the ground was that we could not cast the role that Skipp Sudduth ended up playing. We had a series of disagreements with NBC about who should be in that part. We really wanted someone who looked like a cop. And Skipp was cast in a hotel room in New York without the network present about 12 hours, 14 hours before we started shooting.
So I go over to the Four Seasons and I meet Coby for the first time. The first thing I remember saying to him is I saw his feet. You know, he wears size 17 shoes. And I said, "How'd you get up here with those on the elevator?" And everybody cracked up.
17.
17?
Yeah, I got big feet.
Bozo's got big feet. Those are water skis.
Oh.
In Skipp's audition, we were doing the scene in the pilot where we're in the building going after the guy who shot Jerry. He did this thing where he was yelling at me, and he was like poking me in the chest, and I was like, "Damn, this guy's really poking me in the chest." And then he grabbed my face.
Look, you want to get yourself killed? You do it on somebody else's watch. You got me? Do we understand each other? Do you understand me, Davis?
And the scene was done. I was like, man, and Skip's like, "All right, thanks for your time, thanks for your time." And Skipp left, and my little young ass, I turned to John and Chris. I was like, "Wow, that guy was really good. Is that guy gonna be Sully? Like, we're gonna give him the part, right? Like, you know what I mean? like it was up to me or something."
We cast Skipp, and the network, they hated it. They hated the whole idea, and when they saw him, they hated what we'd done because it was never what they wanted it to be. But I think that Skipp in that part grounded the show in a reality that made it not seem like a Hollywood presentation of what New York cops are like.
One of the walls that you're pushing against as an actor, for so long is just surviving. There's a part of you that forgets all about what you'll do if you really succeed. It took me a long time to register how significant a break and a change it was in my life.